Hello, everyone. We'll be starting in just a moment. Can I get a screen check? Does somebody see my screen? Thank you. Okay, we have a good number of people on the call. We have more joining us. I'm actually going to start by playing. My name is Susan Gobreski. I work with Keystone Research Center and the Reimagine Appalachia campaign. And I'm going to actually start while people gather by playing a video that the campaign produced. So I hope this works.
Most people in Appalachia, whether we're white, black, brown, indigenous, whether we live in big cities, small towns, or just up the holler, we love our families, our neighbors, and the communities that raise us. We work hard, we take care of each other, and we expect to be treated justly and to get a fair deal no matter the color of our skin or size of our bank account. But for too long, decisions that affect us have been made by politicians who are more accountable to the coal industry and their absentee owners than to us. They used our communities, our labor, and the land for their profits, sometimes as they divided and erased us. Then and now, the people of Appalachia are working for a brighter day. And it's time for a new direction. It's time for new opportunities for us and for the generations to come. It's time to build an economy that works for us based on our values and on our strengths, on our skilled workforce, our natural resources, our ingenuity and grit. Imagine jobs that stick around and that pay a living wage while protecting our health, our community, and our planet. Imagine that being black, brown, a woman, having a different identity or belief didn't mean less pay and more discrimination. Imagine a place where young people stay. Imagine all workers having the freedom to unionize for good benefits and a secure retirement. Imagine restoring the land, water, forests, and riverfront. How do you reimagine Appalachia? Reimagine Appalachia is the start of a conversation, a framework that builds from our local sound and creativity to meet the challenges of a changing global climate while creating a fair deal here at home. Empowering working people, building community, and restoring the environment. Let's reimagine Appalachia together and make our vision a reality.
Great. So a wonderful video. Just briefly, we're going to give a quick campaign overview and update. We'll talk about the research that's been done, the policy proposals that we are working on, the strategy and message for the campaign, labor perspective, campaign resources and activities, and what you can do. Our presenters today will be the Executive Director of the Keystone Research Center, Steve Herzenberg. We'll also hear from Annie Reagan and Ezra Thrush from Penn Future, the two co-chair organizations for the Pennsylvania work. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Steve. One other thing I'm going to ask everyone to do is introduce themselves and their organizations in the chat. Steve, all yours.
Thank you so much, Susan, and thank you all of you for taking the time to join us here today. The overarching goal of this meeting is to expand the Pennsylvania team that's working to capitalize on a 4 or 5 month all hands on deck, once in a century opportunity. We have a chance here to win a federal climate infrastructure package that really is critical to the future of our state and our 4-state region that's part of the Reimagine Appalachia campaign. So we're here with a purpose to share the story of the Reimagine campaign and strategy, and we got you hooked enough that you're here tonight or this afternoon. But I mean, our real goal is to pull folks in with their members, with their networks, so that we can get something really good done in DC over the next few months. So here's the brief overview of what Reimagine Appalachia is. The first thing is the overarching outline is it's a campaign. It's a campaign that's anchored in the Ohio River Valley, so southwestern Pennsylvania, southeastern Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky. Some of our work ends up in those states being statewide, just like some of our work, and the group we're trying to build up in this conversation is not going to be just Southwest PA. It's going to be statewide, because that's where our potential to weigh in with the congressional delegation is over this critical period. We started in early 2020, just sort of 15 months ago, and we wanted to create a vision for a 21st century Appalachia that's good for workers, communities, and people's health and the environment. One critical thing about the way we did this is a bottom-up campaign, a campaign that's embedded in this region, not a bunch of national groups coming here and telling us what our policy on climate or jobs should be. So we built up our vision with input of over 100 stakeholders, with countless listening sessions, including with the labor community, racial justice community. We went to painstaking efforts to make sure we gathered, reviewed, incorporated a lot of great work that's been done in the trenches in this region around difficult issues in terms of opportunity and community well-being. So we developed that vision the middle of last year, and then we laid that out. And this is a vision that can create hundreds of thousands of jobs, can be a turning point in terms of creating prosperity in this region. At this point, our framework has been endorsed by over 100 organizations. So that's the basic outline, and the advocacy we're doing in connection with the infrastructure debate in Washington, DC, which obviously began in earnest a couple of weeks back when President Biden spoke in Pittsburgh to outline something called the American Jobs Plan, which is the first part of the federal infrastructure package. So as we'll talk more about, there's enormous overlap between the Biden American Jobs Plan and the Reimagine Appalachia vision. So we're going to be fighting like heck to get an ambitious plan like that across the finish line, and also to shape it to be as generous as it needs to be for our region, and to include the kind of critical provisions like labor standards and community standards that are the values of the Reimagine Appalachia campaign. Here are sort of 3 key premises of the Reimagine Appalachia campaign. one starting premise is that the investments we now need to get to net zero carbon emissions by 2050, that's going to require a great deal of investment in sustainable transportation, in more efficient manufacturing, in modernizing the grid, including the broadband we need for smart grid, in absorbing more carbon, in better farming practices, and by planting more trees, by building electric vehicle infrastructure. So the first premise, in a sense, of the campaign is that because of the massive investment we need for climate reasons, we're going to create lots and lots of jobs, and a lot of those jobs will be trades jobs and industrial jobs, manufacturing jobs. So for that reason, if you get the standards and the quote strings that are linked with the investment in reducing carbon emissions, if you get those right, then this massive investment can be a boon for economic opportunity. It can lead to the growth of a lot of good union jobs. And therefore, while in this region, over the past decades, environmental issues have been divisive, and there's been the view that environmental issues, including climate change, would be bad for jobs. We started with the view that actually, because of this massive investment we need, because of the jobs that investment could create, which could be lots of good union jobs, in fact, a pro-union, pro-worker climate plan can be very unifying for the vast majority, the 99% of the region. So the next slide gives you a little bit of the economic history of this region, which people in this call mostly don't need. It's a map of the Appalachian region, including and going beyond actually these 4 states, but it's color-coded, where deep red is the most economically distressed, and where light blue, which is almost all you get in any of the Appalachian states, is second rank out of 5 counties. There's like 3 counties in Pennsylvania, that, including Allegheny, that make that tier. White is the middle. A lot of counties, thankfully only a couple in Pennsylvania, but a lot of counties that are in the bottom 2 categories, and West Virginia and Kentucky especially. So bottom line is, this is a region where either it's been persistently poor and for decades, or for Southwest Pennsylvania, Southeast Ohio, like Youngstown, these were areas that did great in the New Deal, but then were hammered in the steel industry and have never fully recovered. So because of this history of economic challenge, downward mobility, we knew coming in that you cannot advocate for environmental or climate policies in this region unless you lead with jobs. And so that's why our strategy does lead with jobs, and the upside in terms of good jobs we can create, union jobs that we can create. A lot of the work we've done since outlining our framework last July is we've had studies done of the jobs that were created by the Reimagine blueprint. We've also had a series of white papers done, which drill down into the different ways in which you reduce carbon emissions, like some of the ones I mentioned before, which are shown here, like modernizing the grid and universal broadband and efficient manufacturing. So we'll share this PowerPoint. The bottom line is we've run the numbers. We've estimated the kind of federal investment we need, and then estimated the jobs that would be created. And basically in Pennsylvania alone, the kind of Reimagine framework, which bears a striking resemblance to the climate portions of the Biden American Jobs Plan, would create actually in Pennsylvania alone, it creates nearly 250,000 jobs. This chart is for the 3 states, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. This plan would create over 500,000 jobs, which is roughly half the jobs that were lost between February of last year and the last few months. So next slide, please, Susan. Okay, so the values, I mentioned this before, but the values of the Reimagine agenda, part of it's about spending a bunch of money, but it's critical how that money is spent, and that it does have union rights and maximize good union jobs, create opportunities for the diverse workers that too often were left out of opportunity in the past, ensures equivalent new good jobs for coal workers, and again, has a level of public input and transparency in terms of the use of this money. So that's the basic outline. That's the policy substance in a sense, and the areas of investment and the jobs that would result. The advocacy strategy that we're looking for you guys to weigh in on is around getting a good climate infrastructure package passed. So our basic approach is we're trying to unify a broad set of stakeholders. We've mentioned some of them: union leaders, racial justice advocates, environmental groups, faith-based communities. We've now got a resolutions process where we're getting local elected officials to sign a resolution endorsing the Reimagine blueprint. Community development groups, we're building a community and economic development network initially to help with the advocacy, and then on the back end to help make sure that the money is going to be spent right, and again, we're now trying to line up. Our states have been an obstacle to climate legislation. They've got critical leverage. Everyone knows that Joe Manchin, the senator from West Virginia, has enormous leverage, but Senator Brown in Ohio is also very influential. Senator Casey in Pennsylvania is very influential. So we're basically trying to line up the congressional delegation as an Appalachian voting bloc, get them behind the aggressive package that's needed, get them behind the principles that are needed, and get them behind the idea that our region needs to get a fair share, which is more than a population-based share of this investment. And we need that because of the poverty and the downward mobility, the need for opportunity that I talked about. We need that because of the damage done over really 100 or more years in terms of extraction. We had a couple of papers released last week from our campaign on the damage, the amount of acid mine land and the number of uncapped oil and gas wells. It's going to take a lot of investment to clean up that damage, repair that damage. But the good news is if we get the investment we need, that can be good jobs. We get the details right, they can be union jobs. So I'm about to wrap up. I already mentioned that the Biden speech in Pittsburgh came to Pittsburgh because he agrees with us. He thinks he can make the sale, that aggressive infrastructure, climate infrastructure investment is a win for jobs, for working people, for unions. He was introduced, I think it was a member of the IBW that introduced him at the Carpenter's Hall near the airport in Pittsburgh. But the president can't get this done alone. So that's where we all come in. And so with that, there's a list here of sort of, actually on the next slide, of the sort of basic tactics we're using. But the tactics we're using are basically the normal campaign tactics, communications, getting the state and local electeds to be champions, calls to action when we get to the stage where there's an actual bill that's being considered. So what I want to do at this point is turn things over to Rick Bloomingdale, who's both one of the founders of the Keystone Research Center and a member of our board, but more importantly, is the president of the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO. So he's going to offer a labor perspective on this opportunity and this campaign. Rick.
Thank you, Steve, and appreciate being able to take a few minutes to talk to folks. I know everybody's got busy days, and this really is a unique opportunity for us with President Biden's bold vision that has incorporated much of Reimagine Appalachia's program. So we were excited to see that. But, you know, as I've reached out and, you know, we were, Steve will tell you when this first started happening, you know, we were very reluctant to sign on as board members. And, you know, because we've been down this path before where we've been promised all kinds of things. And that's why so many of our members have gone the other way politically, unfortunately. And I don't mean to make this about politics, but the two are inextricably linked, where Democrats have promised and promised things and nothing has materialized. And of course, then the other side made it the Democrats' promises, you know, the war on coal and all that other BS, which, you know, most of our members know that it's really market forces driving the change in industries in Appalachia. But, you know, this is such an important effort, but it needs to be done. And as Steve said, you know, this isn't about DC or Harrisburg coming into Appalachia or Western PA and saying, you know, we're from Washington, we know what's good for you. This has been a grassroots and ground up effort. And, you know, the way that we're going to be able to get labor on, and IBW has been very, and they're aware of changing needs, right? Unions have changed over the years. We've seen, you know, unions that were huge at one time, the International Lady Garment Workers Union, and as textiles moved, that union made some transitions, but never found the jobs for their members that got laid off from those factories, never got the appropriate training, or, you know, there were so many barriers against organizing into a union that what people took was, you know, much lesser paying jobs. And, you know, and I don't want to drone on, but I read an article about the Bessemer Amazon, the union drive down there, and Amazon was bragging about what great jobs that they provided, $15 an hour, which is a high wage for Bessemer, and they're so proud of paying $15 an hour. But what they don't tell you is that those jobs, there used to be a Bessemer, and you know, Bessemer's was the guy who invented a blast furnace, and they named the town after him. But there used to be a big steel mill there, and those jobs paid $35 an hour. And what was the difference? Is they were union jobs. So, you know, even Amazon can pay well if they're union and you have somebody at the table. But, you know, the idea, so our members are very skeptical. They don't want their jobs, their $35 an hour jobs, to be replaced with $15 an hour jobs. And that's going to be the challenge that we have, is trying to make sure that folks don't see the words just transition and think it's another boondoggle. They need to see that we are serious about providing real jobs for them, that if somebody's 55 and making $70,000 a year, that somehow they're not going to get laid off and going to be making $30,000 a year at $15 an hour as a greeter at Walmart. And so those are the challenges that we have. And, you know, Steve and I have talked, and we're talking a little bit about the orphan gas wells. And, you know, a lot of that work in the past has been done by big non-union contractors who tend to come in and cap, you know, the old companies that went out that drilled those wells, they'll cap them, and they tend to be non-union. They'll sometimes use union contractors for some work. But if we're serious about making sure that mine reclamation and orphan gas wells and that are done, that are good paying jobs, they're going to have to be union jobs. And because typically, and, you know, look, this is where I come from, but typically employers aren't going to pay you what you're worth unless you organize and bargain for what you're worth. So that's, I think, why we have such a strong emphasis on this being union jobs. And of course, That means, re-leveling the playing field for union organizing by passing the PRO Act, the Protect Our Right to Organize Act, which will go a long way towards making sure that unions have the opportunity to organize those places. And as Steve mentioned, we got to make sure in the legislation that there are things like prevailing wage and parts of the law that make sure that unionization is a key part of any plan. Because look, if you just look at that map and see the distressed areas and what goes along with that, opioid addiction, folks working in places where they're easily hurt and they become disabled, and they try to get back on their feet, and there's no support system to get them back on their feet so they can lead a more productive life, doing the work that they enjoy. And so there's a lot of challenges in this region. Obviously, there have been since the Great Society came in and tried to lift folks up back in the 60s, but it's been a struggle ever since. And of course, as the video shows, you have absentee owners who, take the money and run and leave the workers behind. So I'm thrilled at the prospects of what President Biden's doing, but more so about what, look, Reimagine Appalachia started before the presidential election. And will continue. Obviously, it'll be a lot easier if we pass the infrastructure bill that includes the kinds of things that we need to lift the region up. But most importantly is we're doing it with input from people in the region and having them as partners. And I think that's critical to making this work. You can't go in and lay something down on people. You have to make them your partners, get them to be your partners, their ideas. What do they need? And of course, we know they want good paying jobs. They want good schools. They want clean air. They want clean water. They want a better quality of life for them and their kids and their grandparents. So I appreciate all the great work everybody's doing. We'll help with the marketing and the PR and whatever else is necessary to bring our union leaders along. And many of them are curious about what's happening here and are anxious to see this produce some good union work. So thanks.
All right, I think it's my turn. Susan, if you could do the next slide. And hi, everyone. It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces that I haven't seen in a while. Thanks for joining. I'm Annie Regan. I am the Reimagine Appalachia campaign coordinator. I'll put my email in the chat. And I'm also a senior program manager at Penn Future, which is how I know most of you. But I'm going to just very quickly go over some of our communications, our news hits, and upcoming events we have. So here we're really excited to show that we've been getting a lot of national media attention, and we just highlighted a few of one of our favorites in the past couple of months based on events, and we will share this slideshow with you so that you guys can have the links to them and read these really great articles. But those are just a few. Next slide, Susan. I also just want to quickly shout out to our social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and on YouTube with our promo video. I'll send the links in the chat as well, so you can follow. Mostly on Twitter, we're very active, so you can get our updates through that. Another just slide of links that we want to show as a resource for you in the future. This is all on our website too, under our resources tab, with our jobs report, especially for Pennsylvania, our white papers. We just released a few last week. You can see all of our press coverage. All of that is updated regularly on our website, but it's also going to be on this slide if you need to access any of that. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about ways to participate. We're hoping to have monthly calls for our Pennsylvania State Table to talk about pertinent legislation or ways to get involved as we get closer and closer to passing this infrastructure package. We also just set up our email platform through Every Action to send out action alerts to let folks know when we need to take action and who our targets are. Some will be Pennsylvania focused, some will be regionally focused. So if you sign up on our newsletter on our website, you'll be sent emails about when to take action. There's also, as mentioned, if you are want to get your local government or community or local city or town involved, we have a resolution, and we're excited to announce that we already had one in Pennsylvania already passed. Dr. Patty DeMarco, she's not with us today, but I think she's at another presentation, but Forest Hills was able to pass that we're really excited about. And so we're hoping to get a few more in Pennsylvania to show the momentum on the local level and that we're ready for these federal dollars to be allocated in our communities. And another way to get involved, and I believe Joanne is here, you can reach out to Joanne Martin to get involved with the sustainable finance component of our campaign, so our Community and Economic Development Network. Her and Tom Croft are doing really great work. If you're interested in that component, please reach out to her. And then we also have committee calls, the next one being on Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday. All of our calls are every other week. And we have the planning committee, which helps amplify our upcoming events and how to be strategic about getting the word out. We have our racial community justice committee. They're launching, in the process of launching, the Black Appalachia Coalition, as well as a story bank to capture. We have a lot of policy jargon in these white papers. We really want to make sure that we resonate with the everyday Appalachian and really connect with those personal stories to show why we want to reimagine Appalachia. And last, we have the research committee that meets every other Friday to get input on these white papers. So if there's a particular facet of our blueprint that is your expertise, please reach out to us and let us know. We would love as much expertise as we can. Next slide. And then this is also a great slide just to have, and with links, and we'll send you the PowerPoint so you have access to all of this, but essentially all the past events, and they're also on our Facebook Live page, so you can kind of go back and watch them in your own time. And so you can see that we've worked with Senator Casey on CCC legislation. We've worked with Senator Brown on clean manufacturing. We have press conferences with the release of our white papers. Last week, we were pretty busy with our abandoned mine lands and orphan wells webinars, where we have experts kind of talk about these really complicated subjects and why they make great jobs. The Atlantic Council panel is something I would recommend to watch. So this is kind of what we've been working on and what we'll be continuing to do and produce. And then I also just want to quickly highlight some upcoming events that we have. On April 28th, we're one of the co-sponsors with the Reclaim Coalition to do a Reclaim Town Hall, working with Pennsylvania Congressman Matt Cartwright. So if you go to reimagineappalachia.org/events, you can register there. We also, and I'm sure a lot of you know Natalia Rudiak, who is working on our local government outreach to pass these resolutions and to kind of create a toolkit and resources for people to talk to their local government and give them the tools and resources, and kind of talk to other people to see what their communities, to see what are best practices for passing this resolution. Next slide. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have. I also want to call out Ezra. He's on this call. He's Penn Futures Policy Director. He is also a key part of our coalition, is in communication with a lot of our Pennsylvania electeds. and talking to key targets. Ezra, do you kind of want to do a quick debrief of who you've been talking to, who our targets are, and especially our involvement with Senator Casey's Civilian Conservation Corps legislation, which should be coming up soon?
Yeah, thank you, Annie. Thanks to everybody for the time here and joining us today. I just wanted to be fairly brief on these items, but wanted to make sure you were aware, and if you were interested and able to join us in some of the federal advocacy efforts that we're doing as a part of the coalition, I wanted to make these known to you so you can join us. As Annie had mentioned, I work with Penn Future as well. I'm the Senior Director of Government Affairs based in Harrisburg, but doing a lot of work statewide and in Washington. I just wanted to talk about a couple things as a part of the Reimagine Appalachian policy blueprint, and really Steve and his team at the coalition working on the Appalachian Climate Infrastructure Plan. We're starting to reach out to members of Congress and their offices and their staffs to hold meetings to debrief these different materials, to talk about the Pennsylvania Jobs Plan, jobs impact reports from Perry that we had worked on as a coalition earlier this year, and to talk about our regional priorities and what we'd like to see in the infrastructure bill as it starts getting shaped, as it gets introduced and moves through the House and the Senate. As we know, much of this year is going to be taken up working on the infrastructure bill, American Jobs Plan. We're eager to see that move forward, but we want to also make sure that our regional priorities, what we've laid out in the Appalachian Climate Infrastructure Plan, make their way into the legislation. And as Steve had already said earlier today, much of what we had called for has been put into President Biden's plan that he unveiled in Pittsburgh at the end of last month. So we're really excited about that work. We have a weekly federal call where we strategize over different offices, both Senators Casey and Toomey, and our targets in the House. Really, it's much of the House, most of the delegation we're talking with. I think it's mostly Democrats, and I think we have 5 or 6 Republicans that we're talking to because of folks who are on key committees and positions, or they're in the right part of Pennsylvania's geography. So we are talking to a bipartisan list of offices and making sure that they know where we stand on these issues, what we'd like to see in the legislation. And I will mention we have a couple efforts afoot. We're trying to work closely with Senator Casey's office and Senator Brown's office with our Ohio counterparts and a few others in the Senate to maybe move a Dear Colleague effort, trying to see if we can build a block of support in the Senate for our regional priorities. So that's something that we're working on. We're also working closely with Senator Casey on a bill that he has coming out fairly short order, maybe in the next week or two. This bill is going to be reinstallation of the Civilian Conservation Corps, and a lot of it's going to be focusing on racial justice element, equity, putting Pennsylvanians back to work in good-paying union jobs, and also there are parts of provisions in the bill that also work on trying to support returning citizens, and we believe that this reinstallation of the Civilian Conservation Corps from Senator Casey not only will be great for our infrastructure and putting folks back to work, but also cutting carbon emissions. And it's really in line with the Appalachian Climate Infrastructure Plan, and it's in line with the Reimagine Appalachia policy blueprint. So we're really looking forward to this forthcoming legislation from Senator Casey, the Civilian Conservation Corps legislation. You should hear more about that fairly soon, probably in the next few weeks, and we will be in touch. We'll probably ask for folks to help us get members on board, whether that's Senator Toomey, whether that's the House members, to get them to become co-sponsors of a House companion bill. But we will be working pretty heavily once that bill gets introduced, along with, of course, the infrastructure bill when that gets introduced. So I wanted to just stop there, and I'll kick it back to the team. Thanks, Annie. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ezra. Good. Susan, you're going to facilitate this, right? Go for it.
Yeah, we're about to actually just have questions and answers and discussions, but I just want to draw your attention. If you don't want to ask your question, you're welcome to unmute yourself. We'll see if we can manage questions. But I also want to draw your attention to the chat. Annie's been posting links. We are going to post a link to the survey what we really want to start doing is identifying what groups have the capacity to do which parts of this. The infrastructure bill is coming up fast. It is huge. It is a multi-state, multi-generational impact, many, many jobs, which is going to have a huge impact across the region. And so we're going to need to identify who's able to help meet with Congress. We're going to be getting action alerts out to folks. We're going to be asking you to distribute these to your networks and to your lists. We need to get those local resolutions passed. So when we send this survey to you, it's just a couple of check boxes. It'll take you 2 minutes and help us identify where you want to plug in, where you want to slot in. And so with that, I'm going to stop and we have time for questions or comments. So Steve, I'm going to let you lead, but if you want to tap one of us in, please do. So are there questions or comments? Well, all right.
Well, I'm going to pick up one of the questions which I responded to in the chat, but then again, hopefully, while I'm doing that, other people will come up with questions. So PJ was asking, let me find his question. Yeah, how do we ensure that workers' good paying jobs will be sustained over the long haul, or whether there will be retooling and retraining with shifts in demand? So the response I put in the chat, which is easier to make clear verbally, is at least when it comes to some of the trades work that's part of climate response, I think the situation we're in now in terms of global warming and in terms of weather changes and the damage caused by weather changes and the need for adaptation that will result from rising sea levels, is that the fact is there's going to be a demand for a huge amount of that work for as far as the eye can see. So, for what I refer to the trades as the essential workers of climate response. And, I think we've got no choice now. We have to invest as a society and a world in repairing that damage, in adapting to the climate change and the sea level change that it's too late to reverse. And so the critical issue is how good those jobs are, because someone's going to have to do that work. And so if we can get the principle that the public investment in that work needs to come with wage standards, prevailing wage, needs to come with union rights and create union jobs, then I think in terms of at least that part of the workforce, there'll be a lot of good jobs for a long, long time. Other questions? Someone, oh, Laura, you got your hand up, I think. Yeah.
I think Scott was first.
Oh, I was first? Okay. So I read a study by the Ohio River Valley Institute that seems to suggest 17,000 new jobs can be created by reclamation on the mine structures in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, what have you. And I have to think that a majority of the jobs that you're talking about here today, including with this infrastructure, is in reference to that particularly. Is that right?
I mean, there's a lot of, so that's certainly a chunk of the jobs. I mean, if you go to the Reimagine website, there's reports done by the PERI, the Political Economy Research Institute, one for Ohio, one for Pennsylvania, one for West Virginia, and then Reimagine, because those reports reach 135 pages. So we did like 8-page summaries of each of those 3 state reports to make it a little simple. So there's some of those jobs. I mean, part of it but they're not by themselves a majority. I mean, part of it is that, again, when you go through the carbon footprint and you think of transportation and therefore electric vehicles and rail, and you think of manufacturing, and you think of modernizing the grid. So that's actually upgrading the grid itself, building the broadband, all of the renewable energy that's necessary. Then you think of the repair and the damage. So it really is, it's jobs for electricians, operating engineers, laborers, carpenters. I mean, it's yes, it's in repair and the damage, but it's not, and that's a lot of jobs. And so you put your finger on something really important. Actually, one of the areas where the Biden plan may not be ambitious enough is the 16 billion that they want to spend nationally on both acid mine reclamation and capping orphan wells. So we were just having a discussion in our federal advocacy group about, how hard do we want to push for increasing that number. And so that's clearly part of the job creation, but an important part, but by no means all of it.
I guess real quick, I just wanted to mention whether or not Reimagine Appalachia is working at all with Senator Portman, who could be a strong ally in stopping that dock building and the transportation of hazardous materials on Lake Erie. Senator Portman was responsible years ago for the Great Lakes Initiative. And if there's any work to maintain or build more jobs in the transportation industry, whereby trucking is a better alternative, safe trucking and safe routes, hazardous transportation routes, rather than trucking or barging that on the Ohio River or in Lake Erie, and not building those docks, although that can obviously be considered job creation. A simple question, is Reimagine Appalachia having a stance, or Penn Future for that matter, having a stance on the Ohio Siting Board's work to build docks and barging that hazardous material on the river?
That's not an issue that Keystone Research Center is knowledgeable about. I can't speak for Penn Future.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm going to put my email in the chat, Scott, for everyone. So you can reach out to me. We have been trying to reach out to Portman. It won't shock you to our friends in Ohio have been. It won't shock you to find that his office has not been as responsive as, let's say, Brown's office. But we actually, one of the strengths of our campaign is we have partners in each of the states that has great connections to our key congressional advocates. Laura, take it away.
Yeah, I just want to say, so with Pittsburghers for Public Transit, that I will probably push on the goals around the build a sustainable transportation system, because because I feel like it's not totally aligned with what people in cities like transit riders need, and also with what ATU workers need, and TWU workers. So I appreciate that we can weigh in on the white paper, but I think that there's probably more work to be done about what actually we're talking about when we talk about sustainable transportation. I just want to flag that.
You are absolutely right. So our team, I mean, our transportation team is too small, and we're a big campaign, but we're still capacity constrained. So Laura, if you would reach out to us and let us, if you or your organization or your networks are in a position to help us flesh out, and in some cases, if we've got some things that are off base, fix our sustainable transportation agenda, we would love your help. Don Walco, I owe you a call, and I apologize. I'll try to. If you're listening, I know you're on mute, but and put your contact information in the chat box for me. Then I'll call you later this evening. Other sort of questions, thoughts about the campaign? Don't be hiding your close personal relationships with Senator Casey or other members of the Pennsylvania congressional delegation from us. We want to know about that access that you have.
Well, while folks are organizing themselves or getting ready to put their hand up, Ezra, can you just restate or add the information about timing? When this is going to get ready?
On the American Jobs Plan, the infrastructure package? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what we're hearing is that likely the bill will get introduced this spring, I'm hearing likely the next few weeks to month, and the idea is, the goals are anyways that the folks are putting it together. The House is trying to get it done by July 4th. I think that's pretty ambitious based on what I'm hearing, and the Senate will take it up the remaining part of the year. The entire Congress is trying to get the thing wrapped up by fall, maybe September timeframe, that around that ballpark. And then what we're going to have to do is that, after we're successful in moving this across the finish line, we get to help influence how this money gets spent and shaped in Pennsylvania. So again, we will be calling forth all of you wonderful advocates and NGO partners who are part of Reimagine Appalachia family to engage and talk heavily with Governor Wolf and all the state legislators and local municipal electeds about how it's important to spend the money on priorities that we support here with the Reimagine Appalachia policy blueprint. So yes, so the infrastructure package will start moving the next few weeks to month, which is why I think Senator Casey's trying to introduce his CCC bill in the fairly short term, because they're trying to get it out to maybe hitch it to the overall package, the infrastructure package as it moves. And then we'll spend much of the summer and early fall getting this done. And then probably sometime early mid fall, we'll start to work on shaping how the money gets spent in Harrisburg. So hopefully that's helpful there, Susan.
Great, thank you. Jason.
Yes, hi everybody. Good afternoon. Thanks, Jason Beery, Urban Kind Institute. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about kind of the racial equity component of Reimagine Appalachia. In particular, does the document and the documents that you're putting forward in Reimagine Appalachia in general have a statement explicitly stating that Black Lives Matter?
I mean, that is the precise, whether those precise words are in the framework released in July 2020, I don't frankly know off the top of my head, but the importance of racial justice and creating opportunities for Black, Indigenous, and people of color is in that document multiple times. It is, again, it's a core principle for this has to be an inclusive economy, one, we need to build an economy characterized by racial justice as well as equity in other dimensions is one of our, is one of our core principles. Yeah, that's, we actually, on one of our strongest committees is a woman called Marcia Dinkins, who's from Ohio, and actually her co-chair is from Quentin King from the West Virginia Center on Budget and Policy. The two of them are the co-chairs of our racial justice working group, which meets kind of every other week on Wednesday at 11. And actually, Marcia is now partly in alignment with Reimagine Appalachia. She's sort of organizing what she called it initially a Black caucus. Now she's calling it, I think, an Appalachia caucus. So anyway, so that's a really important part of our work. So thank you for your question.
Yeah, and at the end, Jason, I don't know if you saw the video at the beginning, it's very explicit in the talking, the way that the campaign is talking about the importance of this package and who benefits and how. Happy to share that. And if you send us contact information, we're happy to get you connected to the people that part of the work. It is integral to the work. So yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some shots of Black Lives Matter protests within that video, actually.
I also want to say that Marcia is working on setting up listening sessions to use our blueprint and get feedback into how to make it more inclusive. And so that's ongoing work that that she's working on. So that's, yeah, we'll update that once we have it.
And we're also doing, yeah, I mean, one of the most important white papers that we're working on now for release in May is we'll have labor and community standards. And I think we're also working with our racial justice committee to have a listening session specifically on a draft of that, to get feedback on a draft of that paper.
And while folks are still here, I was able to get the presentation uploaded and posted a link a few minutes ago. I'm posting it again so you can see the video and all of the links on the articles, etc. Other questions or comments? Well, with that, a couple of us will stay on. I'd like to remind you to please take a moment and fill out the survey that Annie posted so we can understand where to plug you in. Also make sure you're signed up for our emails, which that is signing up on that survey will do, because that is where we announce our presentations, our webinars, the opportunities. But the more we know about where you think you can help move this, we really need the local resolutions. They have traction because they help elevate how important this issue is to local officials who also have a voice with other decision makers in Congress. So that's an important part of the work. We'll connect you to Natalia Rudiak. We'll connect you to these committees that are posted within the thing. So we appreciate the fact that many of you have endorsed the campaign. If you have not yet endorsed the campaign, or if you know of a group that should be on our list, we ask you to reach out. Our contact is information is in the PowerPoint and we're posting it. We are very grateful for the time that you took at the end of a day when everyone's working hard to join us and to get an update on this campaign. And with that, Steve, you want to take us out?
Sure. Again, it's you got the message. This opportunities to achieve something important like this, of this scale, and also, frankly, something that can play a critical role in terms of shifting the politics and the future policies of our region and our country don't come along very often. So if we really do, we need you, and the country needs our region to be able to champion and win an aggressive climate and infrastructure package that's fair to workers, good for the environment, good for families, and moves us towards greater economic and racial justice and climate justice for the long term. So thank you for joining, and look forward to working with more of you in the future. Back to you, Susan. You gonna play the video as well again, or?
Yeah, I'm gonna go play the video again. I hope.
The first
Yeah.
time it was soft in a couple. There may be nothing you can do about it.
I'm gonna just see if I can check my audio settings here. If you
Yeah.
give me a second. And I don't even know what I'm doing on the audio.
Well, I could try to play it.
Yeah, you want to do that? You should be able to share your screen.
Yeah, because this video is magnificent, people, but you need to, the music, and it needs to be louder. So sure. So I'm playing this out with this video. Is that right?
Yep.
Susan? All right, here we go. So I need to share my screen though, right?
Share your screen.
All right, here we go. And you'll tell me later if this works. Let me put my volume on maximum. It won't let me share my screen, so I can't.
All right,
You do it.
All right, now I have to find it again. Give me one sec. And here we go. Give me 30 seconds. So any other questions? Somebody buy me a minute here.
Well, so what I'm going to do is go find the, I'm going to find the link to the video. And then I'll put it in the chat so that people can play it for themselves. And then when they play it from the Facebook page, they can like it and share it. So let me just get it myself.
What happened is when I clicked it away, To save it, there it is. Hold on, I got it. And share.
Look in the lower left of the share screen window for the audio setting.
Okay. And you guys got a screen there?
Yes.
Yes.
Most people in Appalachia, whether we're white, black, brown, indigenous, whether we live in big cities, small towns, or just up the holler, we love our families, our neighbors, and the communities that raised us. We work hard, we take care of each other, and we expect to be treated justly and to get a fair deal no matter the color of our skin or size of our bank account. But for too long, decisions that affect us have been made by politicians who are more accountable to the coal industry and their absentee owners than to us. They used our communities, our labor, and the land for their profit, sometimes as they divided and erased us. Then and now, the people of Appalachia are working for a brighter day. And it's time for a new direction. It's time for new opportunities for us and for the generations to come. It's time to build an economy that works for us based on our values and on our strengths, on our skilled workforce, our natural resources, our ingenuity and grit. Imagine jobs that stick around and that pay a living wage while protecting our health, our community, and our planet. Imagine that being black, brown, a woman, having a different identity or belief didn't mean less pay and more discrimination. Imagine a place where young people stay. Imagine all workers having the freedom to unionize for good benefits and a secure retirement. Imagine restoring the land, water, forests, and riverfront. How do you reimagine Appalachia? Reimagine Appalachia is the start of a conversation, a framework that builds from our local talent and creativity to meet the challenges of a changing global climate while creating a fair deal here at home. Empowering working people, building community, and restoring the environment. Let's reimagine Appalachia together and make our vision a reality.
Thank you very much for attending. We're looking forward to following up with you and participating in this work as we work to get the infrastructure package passed. Thank you to the folks from Penn Future. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Rick. That's it.
Thank you, Susan. Bye, guys.